Hello, my name's John Thorne from Silverstone Shooting Centre, and this is another one of our little technical feature videos we like to do. First things first, we're not a reviewing company. I don't review product for other people. People like Neil at Rack and Load do a fantastic job of that, not our style. What I am quite detailed on is I treat my competitive shooting like I treat my motorsport side, which is lots of research, lots of testing, lots of finding out what works best, and also, now that I'm in my 50s now, I tend to try and get a technical advantage where I can in competitive shooting to make up for my lack of skill. So we've done a few videos about optics and about the various things we've done in terms of Hawk, in terms of the primary optics, and we've looked at Shield and looked at Hawk and looked at Aimpoint for the red dot side. And there's a little movement on from this one, in as much that over the years I have gravitated towards the Aimpoint red dot series, and I've used a Micro H2 now for on or off for around about 6 years. Very impressed with the optic, fantastic, always been a big fan of it, and have promoted it for that reason. The downside to the Aimpoint series is A, cost, and B, its relative bulk. The Micro H2 is primarily a primary red dot, i.e. it sits on top of the gun for its use as the only optic. And obviously I use it, and a lot of people use them as a secondary in mini rifle, allowing a magnified scope to be the primary. And so it's a reasonably sizable item, weighs a fair bit, and it is bulky in that regard. And I've always overlooked it because frankly the rest of the aspects of the dot are fantastic. It's the only dot I know that won't run out of battery. It's the only dot I know that can be bright enough even in bright direct sunshine. Lots of dot struggle. So moving on from there, I never thought I'd change from that Micro H2. And then moving a little bit earlier on, last year or so, Aimpoint brought out what was called the Acro. Now the Acro is primarily a pistol red dot sight, in as much as it's very, very small, very compact, doesn't weigh an awful lot, and it was primarily set up to run as a primary dot on pistol. Now I was curious about this because I thought, like, nice, I'd look at it. And over time I've been asking for a couple to try, and I bought two. My theory being is that in worst case, now I don't use them, I can put them on the Experience Day guns or something else to use. Now I spent the last 3 or 4 weeks now back-to-back testing the Acro against the Micro from Aimpoint, and I have to say I'm now changing. I'm now moving all of my guns over to the Acro sight, and more importantly fitting them to the scope rather than fitting them to a 45-degree offset mount as I did with my Micro H2s. Now I've done a lot of testing. Essentially the important thing about a secondary dot is your speed to go from your primary to your secondary and back again. So in other words, trying to keep it as close as you can to the eye line to your primary scope, and also get the movement from A to B as nice and simple. It's the shortest amount of time. And what I found with the Acro was, because it is so small and it is so lightweight, you can actually mount it directly onto the scope itself with a mount which primarily I think is designed to sit on top, as you would do for like driven bore type thing, which is primarily where Aimpoint tend to aim their market for, than a military obviously. And what I did was I mounted it to a scope and I rotated it round to a 45-degree offset to mirror, what I thought was mirroring, my position of it mounted on a 45-degree mount on the rail. And what I found was that because of the size of the dot and because of the mount, I can pretty much get the secondary, the Acro, very, very, very close to the eye line of my primary, millimeters away. I did a lot of testing. I went back to back with, well, I have two guns. I have two Vexors, both identical, and both of them I ran with the Micro H2, and then ran one on a Shield 45-degree offset mount, because the Shield mount is just really, really good, very solid. And then I back-to-back tested it with the Acro mount on the 45-degree mount against the Shield, and against the scope mount. And in testing, what I found, both in static shooting and in dynamic moving, that with a bit of practice to relearn my muscle memory, it was significantly quicker for me in terms of transitioning from the primary to the secondary and back again. So, interesting sort of process. I spoke to Aimpoint about it. No one's ever used these dots for that kind of purpose, and so we're going to basically buy a few more. Primary for the Experience Day guns here as well, and also with a bit of support from Aimpoint, we're going to give some away as the prizes for our Aimpoint Winter League, which is hopefully due to carry on once we're allowed to open again. But I thought it's worthwhile sharing this sort of process. It's a small little dot. They're not cheap. They're 550 odd quid, roughly the same amount of money as a Micro H2, give or take, and so they're very much the top end of the market in terms of dots. If you're looking at a cheaper dot, We will still recommend the Shield sight and the Hawk Optics red dots. There's different versions. They're around about sort of 180 to 250 pounds mark. Those are what we would pick if you're more budget limited. They're both very good sights, very, very good. The only thing where the Aimpoint hasn't trumped really is in terms of quality of construction and also the brightness. I've never known to use an Aimpoint where I had to get to its maximum brightness, even in bright sunshine, which is a big deal for dots. Less so in this time of year, but certainly worth thinking about. But yes, it's not cheap. It's almost the same price as a gun in some regard. But I thought it was worth sharing that. So we are going to offer these as prizes for the Winter League, but I thought showing what we're trying to do. Obviously, any questions you have about it, this isn't designed to say go and buy an Aimpoint. Everything shooting about shooting is personal. For me, I tend to sort of pick what I like and then I just basically tell people about it. But all means give them a go. We will still recommend the Micro H2. It's a robust, proper little sight. But in terms of the fitting on the gun and the terms of positioning, the Acro does give some more options, especially fitting onto the scope. Hope it's useful. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Cheers.